everyone. Welcome to SmartBug Media's SmartTake webinar series, where every month we dive into new features and enhancements being rolled out by HubSpot. My name is Nikki Kamau. I am the marketing director here at SmartBug Media and your host for the day. For those of you who have attended this series in the past, welcome back. We're glad to see you. We've had a couple of episodes this season so far, and I think we're on our third season now. So glad to see returning faces, and I hope that you all enjoy. So you'll see here, we've got Michael Berkey. He is another smart bug. He is our paid media director, and we have Crystal King. She is a social media professor at the HubSpot Academy. I'll let you, everybody can go ahead and meet them. So Michael is our director of paid media at SmartBug with a demonstrated history in designing and executing multi-channel paid digital marketing campaigns. He's an expert in curating marketing and advertising solutions with a consumer behavior and psychology focus. We're so glad to have you here, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Super excited to talk today.
Me too. I can't wait for everybody to hear your expertise. Side note, it's really awesome because Michael and I work together closely on the SmartBug paid media stuff. So it's really cool to be able to see him work with the client services, and then I get to have his expertise too internally.
For sure.
All right. And Crystal, so as I mentioned, she is a social media professor for HubSpot Academy with a focus on social media strategy. Crystal has led global social media and community programs for companies such as Pegasystems, Keurig Green Mountain, California Technologies, and Sybase. She has taught classes in writing, creativity, and social media at Harvard Extension School, Boston University, Mass College of Art, and UMass Boston. Crystal received her MA in Critical and Creative Thinking from UMass Boston. She is also a novelist with her latest book, The Chef's Secret, available at bookstores and online. So awesome and so exciting to have you here, Crystal.
It's good to be here. I love doing anything with SmartBug, and so it's always fun.
We're glad to have you. So let's talk about the now and the past. So where are we coming from? How has marketing data evolved that has led us to where we are today? I'd love to hear all the knowledge that you all have on that, the cookies and how they've developed and what we're looking at now.
So I can take the first part of this. So I'm going to set the landscape just a little bit and tell you, and just so everybody on the call just knows where we stand. So you may be very familiar with third-party cookies, which is what a lot of advertisers have been using today. But we're going to be talking about cookies that are first party, second party, third party, and zero party data. First party cookies are what is going to be most important in our future. And those are the ones that are owned and used by the website that the person is visiting. So your own website. And the purpose of those cookies is to benefit the user experience with the brand's website, with the website that you own. So for example, it might remember your username, it might remember the things that are in your shopping cart. But unlike third-party cookies, first-party cookies are not deemed essential. In other words, they're often painted as a better, more private, friendly alternative. And so this is data that you are collecting yourself. Third-party cookies, actually, these are the ones that have been not deemed essential. Let me correct myself there. Third-party cookies have been really important to marketers in the past because they're a piece of code that can be placed on a user's device from a tech company, from websites that you're visiting, and they may be different than those cookies that are on your own site because they're developed by a third party and placed upon your site. And so for the most part, the cookies have existed largely to support digital advertising in companies. This is why a lot of companies like Google and Apple and governments such as in the EU with their new regulations are not so new anymore, that for GDPR, and in California, for example, they have real strict privacy data laws as well. And those, they have deemed that these kinds of cookies are not important to the consumer. They're great for advertisers, but they're not great for consumers. And so those cookies are going to be going away. And many browsers have gotten rid of them already, or they're going to be doing so in the future. And so Google, by the end of 2024, is when they plan to completely phase them out. And so that's probably when we'll see the end of third-party cookies. And so this is super good for consumer privacy In fact, HubSpot's blog research team found that 80% of consumers believe that data privacy is really important. But that leaves marketers in a bit of a, oh my God, what do I do sort of thing. And so I think Michael can probably explain that one for you.
Yeah, and just jumping in there really quickly too. So you might also be wondering what are second party cookies, and basically those second party cookies is essentially a first party list that you're getting or purchasing from a trusted partner. For example, this could be like an airline shares data with a hotel. Let's say someone goes to Tucson, Arizona every November. That airline could share that data with the hotels in the area to encourage the hotels to offer a promotion for that person so that he books with them. I would say, though, where you most commonly see this second party data in use would be between the B2C companies where they are sharing consumer information from one brand to another. So, as Crystal was just mentioning, the third-party cookies are going away, and you're probably wondering what capabilities you're losing with that. And it can be a lot, but if you go in prepared, you would be able to go through that transition pretty effortlessly. But essentially, you're losing the ability to track a potential customer or lead that you might have as they navigate your site and the web in general. It also will be adding a layer of complexity to audience targeting by losing that ability to understand basically what a user is visiting on the web throughout their journey on the World Wide Web. It also will hinder you from seeing what purchases they make or interests they have shown on other websites holistically. So, in general, you're losing a lot of data that we currently acquire through these cookies uh, about a potential lead or customer that will essentially be lost.
So a lot of these cookies are used to retarget your
Yeah.
customers, right? So and retargeting is awesome when the user is browsing for something because they start to see it more often, and it takes advantage of a phenomenon which we're all really familiar with. And those of you who might remember how billboards work on the highway, the more you see something that is coming up, you want to make that stop at that rest area that's been advertised for the last 20 miles, right? So it's the same thing with digital advertising. The more you see ads, the more likely you will be to purchase them. And it takes advantage of this bias that we humans have. And it's something called the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. In other words, it's like a frequency illusion. It's this, or a recency bias. And so something that you've recently learned, suddenly you start to see it more often. So for example, you just bought, I don't know, a green Jeep. All of a sudden you're going to start noticing all the other green Jeeps. And it's not that there was more of them out there. It's just that you have this bias in your head, this predetermined, this propensity to see them more often. And the more popular something seems, the more likely you are to buy it, right? We know popularity works. So what really is not so great is when third-party targeting works against you, and that's an over-targeting, we call over-targeting. And that gives the consumers the sense that they're being tracked and stalked wherever they go. Let's say you just purchased, I don't know, a baby bassinet on Amazon. Next thing you know, you have ads for other bassinets all over, everywhere you go on Amazon, on other websites. And they show up in different apps, and that's because the retargeting is targeting you in a way across all of those third-party cookies. And so when that happens, people become really unhappy with the brand, and it can lead to lowered brand trust. And a lot of consumers, what they do to stop this anyway is they just install third-party ad blockers. I can tell you, I'm one of those people. I don't like seeing my whole website that I'm visiting cluttered up with ads. And so it's not necessarily the best thing when advertisers have relied on over-targeting over time.
Andrew, oh, sorry, go for it.
I think we're going to talk now about first-party and zero-party data.
Yes, yes. I was just going to say I totally understand, and it's such a fine balance when you're a marketer that's trying to run campaigns where you are retargeting and you understand the benefits of that if you do it in a subtle and clear, if you do it in a clear enough way that you're reaching your audience, and you're not overstepping that boundary. And I feel like sometimes it can even be something that might be tied to the persona or the industry that you're targeting and that you're working with, and their threshold, so to speak, of what's considered normal and what they will accept versus what feels creepy and overdone. So let's talk a little, yeah, let's talk a little
I'm
bit
sure
about
most of us have felt some creepiness when it comes to ads, right?
right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how marketers can maximize that first party and zero party data, since we know that that's something that, at least for the time being, seems totally safe for us to move forward with.
So let's talk a little bit about like strategies on how you meet your audience where they are. And one of those really common ways is through contextual advertising and relying on data provided by the social platforms. And this is something that people have been doing all along, but you might want to consider doing more of it as third-party cookies start to move away. And this is also particularly helpful if you're not necessarily interested in buying second party data from somebody else and then reusing it for retargeting. Or if you're not having a lot of luck with your own website in capturing information, and maybe you're a new company, you're trying to attract followers and get consumers, one of the things you can do is use contextual advertising. And you rely on the data that is provided by the social platforms. So for example, Facebook has really amazing targeting, and so in both their Facebook and their Instagram products, Meta does. And what you can do is you can place ads on those on the platform using more contextual tags, or topics, I should say. So for example, if you're a running company, you're a company that produces running shoes, you might place an ad for your sneakers on alongside posts that are related to running or related to races or things like that. You might have those ads appear in YouTube videos or in newsletters or in websites related to that. And so using contextual data that is actually given to you by the audience targeting that's available on the platforms where you might be advertising. And so that works because people are assuming that you're interested in running, so therefore you might be interested in seeing an ad about running and running shoes. And so contextual ads can be super effective. Research by neuroanalytics company Spark Neuro found that contextually relevant ads generated 43% more engagement and 2 times more ad recall. So that's pretty impressive, I think, right? So there's also another thing that you can take advantage of, and that's the zero-party data. And zero-party data is the data that a customer shares with a brand voluntarily. And so this is like you might fill out a survey or you might answer a quiz, and that allows consumers to make informed decisions about the information that they're giving. They're choosing to give you the information. And then the company can decide to do certain things with that information. So for example, if you're a skincare company, you might have a survey on your front page that collects, that tells you you can match your particular skincare to the products, or you can do a quiz to find out what kind of skincare regimen you might need, or what type of skin you even have. And then the company can take that data and use that to target certain ads to those viewers when they're visiting the website. You can ask people for things like their phone numbers and personal information like email, and also their demographics. You can find out their habits, their lifestyle, and purchasing interests, and you can use that in your targeting efforts. And so, Michael, you're going to talk a little bit about first-party data.
Yeah, and I was just going to piggyback off of that and say that really the objective is you really want to identify the types of content, sites, apps. Basically, you want to know where your new customers are going to be, since that data will be lost to us. This requires us to understand our existing customers' so much more deeply through those first party lists, which will help us assume where we can find those new customers in the future with a third party cookieless world. Using the example that Crystal just used, actually, let's say that a brand sells running shoes. Without those third-party cookies to help target those ads, it might make sense for an advertiser to run ads on running-related sites and other places that runners might browse online. However, this limits our scope just a little bit, given that runners could be anywhere and we don't necessarily know the intent of where they're at if we were to just aimlessly target running sites. So there's another component here where we can utilize those contextual signals within our first party data. This could include things like what type of shoes are they buying, how frequently do they buy the shoes, what accessories are they looking at when they're browsing, what accessories are they purchasing. This contextual data might give us some signals and some clues that, oh, maybe person A is a marathoner, or oh, maybe person B likes to run, or they like to hike in the mountains, or maybe they have things like a knee problem and they're buying inserts for their shoes from your company to help them with their joints. By analyzing these transactions and engagements in our first party data, we'll be able to create those really rich customer profiles that we'd want to target. And then that will give us a better understanding of different demographics and interests they may have to find them in a variety of walled gardens and publishers without having those third party cookies. Another way, though, to help mitigate the loss of these third-party cookies is really build a foundation on experimentation. This is something that I've really honed in on here at SmartBug to build a culture within our paid media team to constantly be experimenting, bringing new ideas to the table. This is something that will be vital in this new future. This new foundation should include things like new campaigns on current channels, new campaigns on new channels. This could look like maybe you're not on TikTok, or maybe you're not on CTV running video ads, testing things like that. It could also be things like testing Performance Max on Google. I know that's a very hot topic right now, and something that not a whole lot of advertisers are doing. Some are starting to do, but maybe that's an avenue on Google that you could try, and really honing in there, especially over the next 12 to 20, 24 months, where we have these third party cookies to still rely on, really getting an understanding and foundation there with testing different campaigns and campaign types. In addition to that, though, testing different creative types and assets should also be a habit for your marketing strategy as well. Really understanding the what and the why behind why a campaign is successful will be vital. Understanding the different ad variations within the creative. Maybe the call to action is a different color, or maybe things with that audience performs better with creative A versus another audience with creative B. Really having that understanding of your target audience through experimentation will be crucial, especially too for new companies that start after third-party cookies are depreciated. We're in a bit of an advantage right now because we have those to lean on to bolster our audience profile a little bit. But really, as we move through adding new products and services and things like that to our business, it's going to be crucial to experiment. Another quick tip, really quickly, that I wanted to touch on was using automated bid strategies. Somewhat of a hot topic, but I feel like that's a hot topic that's fading away. Our future is looking more and more automated every single day. I feel like I wake up and there's a new news article about some new AI technology that's being developed. Google's automated strategies, for example, are getting very smart and intuitive, and really understanding how to leverage those and optimize those will be really crucial to letting Google's AI help us determine who a target audience person is and if they fit that profile. Ultimately, what I'm trying to get to out here is the goal should be that we should get to the point when Google depreciates third-party cookies to where we don't even need them anymore. We're already in a place where we're utilizing first-party cookies. We're already full steam ahead in that world. And when the day comes when they get turned off, we don't have to stress that there's gaps in our strategies and have a hard time catching up to everyone else.
Yeah, I totally agree. I really love the points that you were, touching on when it comes to um, zero party data, and when you were mentioning about, how do you really take the activities that you're seeing and create that rich persona that dives even further, and so you can segment that way, like you said, between whether they're a trail runner or they have bad knees or their knees are hurting, and they, what's the purpose behind buying those shoes, and then it's almost allows you to cross sell in those ways with your paid campaigns. And I love that. We personally use, so HubSpot and Typeform have a partnership, and it allows us to have that seamless transaction when we're gathering that zero party data, from our contacts to, when you all come by and you tell us the things that are bothering you in your marketing world or in your digital world, and it allows us to then be able to make sure we're giving you the information you need and educating you in the way that you want to be to make sure that you can achieve your goals. And I think that it's so important that other companies, follow on that same track so that they're not caught in a scary place when those third party cookies disappear. So since we're kind of on the lines of that zero party, first party, let's talk through here we go, the pros and cons of first party advertising. I think, Michael, you can probably kick us off here with some thoughts that you've got around on first party cookies.
Yeah, so there's several things that are pros and a few things that are cons to first-party data and only having first-party data. I'll start with the pros first. One being that first-party cookies offers us complete control and ownership. Obviously, this first-party data is data that we own, data that we receive through our site, through our purchases that we receive, things like that have no influence on outside biases or outside organizations, where we see with second party and third party data, basically other businesses are determining what information to collect, how to present it, and that can have a negative impact on its effectiveness. So really with first party data, we have complete control, which is a great thing. Another thing, Crystal mentioned this earlier, it secures user privacy. It builds that trust with a potential lead or customer that you're going after, and is compliant with those GDPR policies or the California Consumer Privacy Act, that when we capture and leverage that first party data, we don't have to worry about if we're facing any legal or ethical issues. We're meeting those key principles of transparency, confidentiality, accountability, and so on. So we have that benefit going for us as well. A couple of others that I thought of are how first-party cookies can reduce costs overall. As mentioned, those second-party cookies are cookies that we're purchasing, likely purchasing through a third party there. So that reduces that cost. With third-party cookies as well, that can also be expensive and time consuming to really analyze and understand some of that data, and then have to spend money to acquire that large amount of data, and then just investing time and resources into integrating that can also be a money crunch as well. So we're saving money there. Lastly, it just brings increased accuracy and relevancy to the advertising. If you're really taking the time to understand the accurate and reliable data that we're acquiring from our customers, and understanding what's driving them, what's motivating them, that can really hone in on some really strong, powerful strategies when you understand those interests and preferences of your target audience. A couple negatives, though, that I was thinking about is overall just the limited scope and scale that we see with first party data. Firstly, with the limited scope, we can only gain so much insight and depth about our existing prospects and customers within our first party data. There's only so much that we can analyze and bring in off that data. So it will take time to build some of those lists. And while it consists of contact information, purchase history, a range of interactions on your site, it's going to take time to understand that consumer behavior and what is motivating them. And then lastly, as I mentioned, overall just scale, kind of tying these, I guess, go hand in hand with each other, but understanding the purchase history, the analytics that offer those insights, into our competitors, other potential markets, it's going to make it difficult for us to scale our strategies. So really understanding, I keep going back to it, really understanding who our target audience is and having those really rich profiles will be so crucial in this future, without third-party cookies, to understand and to know how to spend our money and where to spend it.
Yeah, I'd add to that that one of the things that marketers are seeing, and that I think 41% is the number that the HubSpot research team came up with, is that marketers believe the biggest challenge will be their inability to track the right data. They're a little bit worried about that. And that this is especially important because we're in a world where privacy is becoming more and more important. And 72% of Americans feel anxious about being tracked online and what is being done with their data. And so eliminating third-party ads also has other benefits, though. I do want to throw that in there. So one of the things that JP Morgan Chase discovered a few years ago was that they analyzed all of their ads, and they determined that advertising broadly with an ad network across 400,000 sites had the same effectiveness as advertising on only 5,000 pre-approved and pre-selected sites. So they determined that many of the sites that their ads were being shown on didn't have real people using them in a natural way. I'm sure you have all run across those sites where you click on, some clickbait news article, and then you go there and it's just all these insane ads and you can barely even manage to read the article. That's what's happening. And so JP Morgan Chase found that by really limiting that scope, that they were able to reach their audience more specifically. And by focusing on places that had real publishers and actual human audiences, that they had better outcomes and they were able to dramatically cut costs, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel like that ties back into exactly what Michael was talking about with the contextual, back to that again, where it's like if you're meeting the people where they actually are, that it kind of eliminates that what happens there with that broad net of just not meeting people where they're at. Let's move on to, we've got 2 questions left for everybody there in the audience. Again, feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat. And otherwise, after we pass through these 2 questions and give you some more information, we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A. So let's talk through how marketers can manage cookieless ads. That's what we're looking at next. So how do we get there once we're okay with, pulling back a little bit on the data that we're garnering from that third party? So how exactly can we, work forward there? I'd love to hear what you have to say, Michael.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can kick this one off. I touched on this earlier. Really utilizing those automated bid strategies within each platform is going to be crucial, in my opinion. Those automated strategies are a great way to save time and to leverage these algorithms to optimize the account. But also that has to be done in a more meticulous way. A lot of people are hesitant to just turn over their dollars to Google or LinkedIn or anything like that. So some people are hesitant to not just set things on manual, but really understanding how you can leverage those. They can be wildly effective. But I say that with the caveat that you just can't set it and forget it. We don't encourage anyone to ever just set it and forget it with their campaigns. But ideally, you should be in a place where it's not as much work as a manual strategy. And it will really help you find the right people and know when to bid and for how much. So would start there. Another way in terms of managing these ads, it really comes down, as I've mentioned earlier, to A/B testing. Experimentation is going to be your friend, and not only with creative, but audiences as well. There's going to be times where you're coming across different target audiences, or you're seeing trends within your first party data that suggest there's another niche audience that you should be targeting. Really understanding all the different variations in an image or ad copy and why those are successful with specific target audiences will be huge in understanding how you should manage those ads and what optimizations to make along the way. And through experimentation, like everything, there's going to be bad results and good ones. But of those, everything is good information because you're learning what works and what doesn't. So really baking that into your culture and strategy for marketing will be huge. And then lastly, marketers who lean on third-party remarketing is going to have a really hard time in this world. Personally, I had built the culture to have remarketing account for 30% of lead volume. So we have essentially a 30% gap when we think about this in 12 months that we have to backfill. So really just making sure that we're taking full advantage of those third-party cookies now, but have a strategy for when those go away, how we'll backfill all those leads in terms of what campaigns and how we manage those. Essentially is what we want to be focusing on.
Yeah, I would also add that you can rely on audience targeting, audience targeting across your social sites. I had talked about that previously about, and targeting is still great when you're doing it more responsibly and with first-party data or relying on the data of the social platforms. And this is what's so great is that these social platforms allow you to separate your customers into segments based on interests or different demographics. So you can target moms with kids, or you can target college kids who are ready to graduate, or there's certain things that you can target that are very specific on the social sites. And that's what's so amazing about doing social ads is that they have all that demographic data already. And you can use that audience targeting to formulate campaigns that align directly with your customers' lifestyles. And so the other thing too is real-time marketing. That's an option. And that's when you match your ads to current events, to things that are happening in the world. For example, if you sell a form of business software, you might want to run ads that are in conjunction with a specific industry trade show that your customers and your prospects might be going to. You can also geo-target. So let's say you are a restaurant and you want to get in local customers. If you're geo-targeting to areas specific around that restaurant, that can be a super effective way to use ads. And you can target individuals who might be visiting those locations as well. So, or recently visited or have lived in those locations. And so another great example is like a news station who might use geo-targeting to serve ads on Instagram to individuals who live in the same town where the station is located. So that's an option as well.
It's really amazing how much data there is like that you can use through those kinds of platforms without creeping into that third party, those cookies there. It's, it's almost mind blowing that it's like, oh, wow, like this is all still, that's great news for us, that all is still going to be available and something that we can use to target, to communicate and connect with our audiences. We are down to the last question here, and I do see some questions coming in. So I see Kat and Ale. We'll get to your questions in just a second here. Thanks for posting those. Let's talk a little bit about what HubSpot features can help us manage cookieless data. Go for it, Crystal. See what you got.
Yeah, so one cool thing is if you're a HubSpot customer, there's a new cookie scanning feature in HubSpot that is currently in beta. And it's pretty cool because what it allows you to do is to tie into the data privacy and consent settings in your HubSpot account. And it's really great for like super admins and for CMS developers who need to understand what cookies are being tracked on their site. And so what this cookie scanner does is it scans and it tracks all the cookies that have been placed upon your site. And it categorizes them into different kinds of cookies as well. I was really shocked when I ran the cookie scanner on my author website and found there was 129 cookies on it, the majority of which I did not set. So that was really surprising to me, just not knowing how other people are using my property to reach people that have come to visit me. So I thought that was really interesting. And then the main purpose of this particular feature is so that you can control all those cookies. You can determine whether or not you want to just get your visitors' consent to show those cookies, or if you want to just block all of those cookies. So after the scan, you'll be given options to be able to do that. You can either block or set all your consent features, and it shows you how the HubSpot cookie banner is managing all the cookies on the site. So that's a really cool thing that we're rolling out hopefully soon, but it's in beta right now.
Yeah, and just from a marketer's perspective who uses HubSpot on a daily basis, I see a ton of value with HubSpot in linking your current customer, current lead volume to a platform like Google. With HubSpot, we're able to send specific audience lists to advertising platforms that can be updated automatically on a regular basis, which reduces a ton of manual work on my team and makes data a lot easier to sync. We can also use those lists to build lookalike audiences and really finding users who have identical traits to our current customers has been so vital to really understanding other audience niches and things like that. So I would say linking things with HubSpot and the ad platforms is crucial. And then additionally, we can use HubSpot holistically to understand our audience. As I was mentioning earlier, really knowing and honing in on those audience attributes and what works and why. We can look through HubSpot and see which ads specific customers or leads engaged with, how many times they engaged with that ad, and then circle back to understanding the ad copy and the creative and why that worked. HubSpot is just another piece to that puzzle that really helps us figure out and hone in on those insights and consumer traits that we might not have a clear understanding on.
I love that. I'm all for HubSpot, so used it for, I don't even know, 13 years now. So any point that leads back to all of us keeping HubSpot as our source of truth for data and contacts and everything is just like works well for me. All right, I'd love to, if we've got a minute here, we can jump into some of these questions. So Kat or Kate, she asked, they asked, how influential will creative be moving forward? And what sort of KPIs do you think will be best in proving success as we shift away from cookie reliant KPIs, i.e. CTR, click-through rates?
Yeah, let me know if I missed part of this question in my answer, but I was just talking to Nikki about this a few weeks ago. I'm a very solid believer that in the next 12 to 24 months, marketing agencies and teams will need to be so creative focused. I think that creative will need to be a foundational piece to your strategy. And it's going to be something that's going to constantly have to be optimized, constantly reviewed, constantly compared against. And I think metrics like click-through rates and things like that are going to be the main benchmarks that you want to pay attention to. Essentially, once someone clicks an ad, that ad is no longer needed since they're on the landing page, and it turns into more landing page optimizations. But really what's driving a user to engage and click on an ad is going to be the most vital part in that part of the journey. So really optimizing that creative, focusing on click-through rates is going to be the top priority, I think, for marketing teams everywhere.
Yeah, and I think with the advent of all the AI that's happening, it'll probably become easier and easier to develop cool creative. Hopefully, Adobe just announced Firefly today, which is their new AI tool for developing imagery, and it looks really promising. So I think there's going to be a lot of ways that marketers might be able to tap into that as well.
Yeah, and to just to tack on one more thing, I forgot. I also mentioned this to Nikki a couple weeks ago. I think that marketing teams, marketing pods, they're going to have creative thinking when developing full funnel strategies. So essentially, we can't have someone who's just an expert in paid search. That person has to understand creative on a higher level in this future to really understand what works and why when developing those more holistic quarterly annual strategies as well.
Yep. Those were some good conversations that we had. Kat or Kate, let us know in the chat if that covers it. I think that Michael and Crystal did a great job, but if not, go ahead and ask any more questions you have. And in the meantime, we'll take this question from Ale. So Ale asks, what advice do you have for marketers to keep up with data policy changes like first party data, zero party data, et cetera? How do How do you keep up with everything that's happening?
Do you want to take this one, Crystal?
I mean, I keep up on everything by paying attention to what's going on in particular publications that deal in digital advertising and digital media. For if you're looking at information for social media today, or your ad week and things like that, they're going to at least mention when certain things are happening. But I think also, I think we talked about this a little bit, Michael, about there's certain like each of the platforms probably have things that are very specific to advertisers, where you can be subscribing to get their latest updates on when things are changing on the platform. That's also a possibility, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so pretty much Google does a really good job with emailing everyone if there's a policy change and making people aware of that. I would also say that they also have threads. Pretty much every advertising platform has a thread with updates and changes that you can also follow as well. To look for those threads will include things beyond policy changes, but it's also good just to stay in the know on new features and things like that holistically. So I would say looking at those threads and making sure that you are signed up and getting email notifications from those platforms for those policy changes. And you can do that in the business settings, I believe, and ticking a box next to your name, or doing a drop down selection on how you would like to be contacted.
I also think there's still a lot of there's a lot of worth in just paying attention to what your competitors are doing as well, just to see like how they're advertising. As they start to ramp up advertising, are they doing more of a certain kind of ad or certain kinds of content? Seeing what's working well for them might also work well for you.
I agree. I also always use LinkedIn as a mine. Like if I see a ton of activity on LinkedIn regarding a specific topic, I'm like, all right, something's going on there. Got to figure that out. I couldn't tell you exactly who to follow necessarily when it comes to paid on LinkedIn, but I know that there's got to be somebody that's that's that source of truth that is always the first to know. And of course, coming back to that, is that SmartBug, we've got content, blog content that goes out about all different sorts of digital avenues and channels that you might use, and the updates and what's happening there, so that you can keep up to date there. So you can always follow
the HubSpot marketing blog too. That's a good source.
Yep. Absolutely. Yes. I go to the HubSpot marketing blog probably once a day. All right. It looks like we're all set. I don't see any more questions that are coming in through the chat. Hopefully our moderators have been working hard to get those answered through that chat channel on the landing page. And so they've got all their questions answered there. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Crystal and Michael. You guys have been wonderful. There's so much information that, I'm even like taking notes in my head of, okay, got to ask Michael about this later to make sure that we're buttoned up. But I really appreciate your expertise.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right, everyone. And again, we'll follow up with the recording via email. We'll have a couple of goodies in there as well, some tools that you can use at your disposal around paid media. So look forward to seeing that in your inbox. Have a great day, everyone.